Donald Trump is in clear cognitive decline. You just can't dispute that our pudding brain president continues to lose it every single day. And it's not just that what's happening up here is quickly dissipating, but Donald Trump physically looks worse and worse every day. He has to have questions asked multiple times because he can't hear. He shuffles around. He slurs his words more than ever. This is a man who is more unstable than we have ever seen before. And it only makes his actions more radical, more angry, and more out of control. And the latest example of that might be the scariest yet, as an increasingly weak Donald Trump is getting played and getting caught getting played. And we are going to get into all of that and why it is having Carolyn Leavitt throw a tantrum. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our channel. Now, before we can get into Donald Trump's very clear health scandal and cognitive decline, I want to start with the other health scandal he's causing, America's health going down the drain because of Donald Trump.
Saying now that people are going to die because of a newly announced decision by Donald Trump in the second Trump presidential administration. Dr. Jerome Adams is not the only veteran of the first Trump term who is directly, urgently making this case. A former top biodefense official from Trump's first term tells NPR this decision, quote, endangers the national security of the United States. Another health official from Trump's first term tells NPR the new policy is, quote, irresponsible, saying, quote, we're taking our country from 2025 back to 1940. And we all know that's a recipe for disaster and failure. The thing that has all these public health officials freaking out, this irresponsible recipe for disaster and failure, is Trump's inexplicable decision to cancel $500 million in contracts related to mRNA technology. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced last week he's canceling funding for the development of mRNA vaccines, including ones against respiratory illnesses like COVID and the flu. In the COVID pandemic, we lost more than 1 million American lives. We would have lost millions, multiple millions more, had it not been for the mRNA vaccines that were developed during Trump's first term. Now, apparently, though, Trump is calling it all off, or at least RFK Jr. is. Trump recently appeared perplexed by the question when he was asked by reporters about this decision to kill off mRNA vaccines. He honestly did not seem to understand what the question meant or what his administration's new policy was. But doctors and scientists and experts in public health of all points on the ideological spectrum are not just criticizing this decision, they are warning that Americans are going to die because of it. Michael Osterholm is an esteemed epidemiologist who has served in senior roles at the CDC. He's been an advisor to both Republican and Democratic administrations. When the AP recently asked Dr. Osterholm about Trump's health secretary cutting off funding for mRNA vaccines, Dr. Osterholm was very blunt. He said, quote, I don't think I've seen a more dangerous decision in public health in my 50 years in the business.
The failure to live up to any of the promises of the Make America Healthy Again movement might be one of the most insidious aspects of Donald Trump's presidency because, in my opinion, those people who were voting for Trump after buying into the bill of goods sold to them by RFK Jr. were probably the least engaged and likely the least bigoted of the new Trump voters. Those people who thought that RFK Jr. was going to make their children healthier, make them healthier, were likely the most apolitical, kind of conspiracy-minded folks out there who just get misinformation all the time. This health and wellness space is full of lies that trick people who are in desperate need of real care and real solutions to their problems because our healthcare system is broken and Big Pharma is preying on all of us. And Donald Trump has completely screwed those people over, and so is RFK Jr. He was never a real savior. He was just stealing the hope that these people had for a healthier country, for a better healthcare system, and it is why these cuts are so disgusting, especially as Donald Trump himself continues to fall into poorer and poorer cognitive health. He's going after all of our health as well, and he really hurts our mental health. But that was on clear display when he was talking in the weakest way possible about Russia yesterday. And what got caught on video was how broken his brain is.
And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was with graffiti. But I thought it was very respectful that the president of Russia is coming to our country as opposed to us going to his country or even a third-party place. But, so look, let's just do this. Let's do this. It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal.
This is not a man who can even remember that Alaska is in the United States. So it's either that Trump can't remember that Alaska is in the United States, or he cares so little and understands so little and remembers so little about a meeting with Vladimir Putin he is hosting that he doesn't know where it is. That's what's going on here. Yet all of those around him, all of those in MAGA, hail Donald Trump as the deal maker in chief. He's thinking so deeply about peace, about making a peace deal. That's why Carolyn Leavitt's posting BS like this. Carolyn Leavitt posted an article from a right-wing outlet and wrote, "Trump, the peace president." Yeah, I don't really think Donald Trump, who hasn't gotten the peace deal that he promised and is now saying territory must be given up for there to be peace between Ukraine and Russia, is really the president for peace, Carolyn. I don't really think that's true. I don't really think that lands with anyone. This is one of the weakest presidents. This is the weakest president that we have ever seen. Donald Trump is weakness masquerading as strength. This is a fake tough guy act that he is putting on to justify his actions and his authoritarian takeover. You have to look no further than Washington, D.C. right now to very clearly understand that. Rachel Maddow broke it perfectly down right here.
Maybe it's not about defending the federal government from threats, right? Maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's not about crime. Maybe it's not about any other thing he might voice. Maybe it's what you can see with your own two eyes. Maybe it's that he really enjoys using U.S. military force against American civilians on American soil and wants any excuse to do it anywhere he can. Watch what they do, not what they say. Because, I mean, given what else he's done on the issue of crime, does it make sense that him sending in the troops for a military takeover of Washington, D.C. is about crime? I mean, that's what he said. But what do you think based on what he's done? Because meanwhile, while he's talking about crime, he has sent in the National Guard and active duty U.S. Marines to Los Angeles as well, right? Supposedly to save that city from protests against him. That deployment was so inexplicable and so palpably disconnected from its purported justifications that the LA Times reported on a spike in calls to the GI Rights hotline, with military personnel telling that hotline they didn't want to be deployed to point guns at citizens. Military personnel telling that hotline they, quote, didn't want to be on the side of being armed occupiers in their own country. The New York Times reported the troops recoiling from Trump's use of them in Los Angeles. In more pungent terms, quote, at least one company commander and one battalion commander who objected to the mission were reassigned to work unrelated to the mobilization. Some troops became so disgruntled that there were several reports of soldiers defecating in Humvees and in the showers at the Southern California base where the troops are stationed, prompting tightened bathroom security. Tightened bathroom security. Despite that military triumph in Los Angeles, we've now got Trump using military bases now all over the country to hold massive new immigrant prison camps, which he is planning on military bases at Fort Bliss in Texas and Camp Atterbury in Indiana and Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey. Trump has also expanded huge swaths of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona into what he's calling, quote, military zones, in which he's legally expanded the boundaries of local military bases into huge, hundreds of miles long territories, where he's now given U.S. active duty troops the instruction and authority to stop and search and arrest Americans on domestic U.S. soil. Watch what they do, not what they say. He wants U.S. military force deployed on U.S. soil facing inward as a show of force to the American people about what he and the government can do to you. People in D.C. are already protesting against it. This was just today. Just as people in Los Angeles protested against it when Trump tried it there as well. This weekend, people protested in Los Angeles against ongoing immigration raids and arrests there. Those protests have not stopped in Los Angeles, with or without the National Guard and the Marines there to try to scare everyone into not protesting.
Donald Trump wants to pretend that there is a crisis, as he always does, so he can pretend to solve it, as he always does, to pretend that he has some real policy, that he has some real aims, that he has some real goals, that this isn't just a show, that this isn't just PR, but he doesn't. And what I found so interesting about DC yesterday is that there were peaceful protests across the city. They were great. People using their First Amendment right. But there wasn't a lot of backlash, right? We saw peaceful protests across LA that Donald Trump sicked his goons on. Why did he do that? He wanted to create a scene there. That's what he wanted to do. He didn't do that yesterday. Why didn't Donald Trump send his goons out to shoot rubber bullets and tear gas and try to cause a stir? Well, in my opinion, it's because I think what Donald Trump wants to do in D.C. is to say he fixed it. He doesn't want it to be a problem. He wants it to be a problem that he solved. Now, crime is already down in D.C., so Donald Trump didn't do anything to help that. Actually, taking money out of the city budget does the exact opposite. When you reduce services, create more poverty, of course there will be more crime. If conditions are worse that people live in, it's going to make their lives worse. So why is Donald Trump not trying to create a stir? Well, he wants to say that he solved the problem so that he can say, well, might as well send the National Guard to New York. Might as well send them to Baltimore, to Philly, to Milwaukee, to Chicago, to LA once again. Why not just take over everywhere if it works? That's the pretext. That's what Donald Trump wants to do. And that's what we got to call out on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you're stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.